Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Today I want to talk about perfect love cast out all fear. Now, this past week in real life application, I've been learning to truly trust God 100%. And I told the F3 guys this morning on the devotional that I had to admit, even though I've been walking with Christ the last almost 5 years now, being a born again, saved Christian, um, I had never really truly knew how to fully trust God 100%. Until really now, with every single part of my life, and then trusting that He has it. You cannot trust a God you don't know. First, so first I had to learn how to trust Him, but before that, I had to learn who He was and who I was in Him. And then I had to actually know Him, and then He knew me. So it's an ongoing relationship. So otherwise, you can't trust a person you don't know. And in 1 John 4, it talks about testing these spirits, because test every spirit to see whether they're from God or not, because he talks about how many false prophets have gone out into the world. And not only that, false teaching and the lies from the enemy you hear, these thoughts that you have, the worries, the fears, all that is from the enemy, and there's always a spirit behind it, and this is called the spirit of fear. So we're either operating out of fear and weakness of the flesh, or by the love of Christ and by the power of the Holy Spirit. We need to be able to test these spirits and discern whether they're from God or it's some other spirit. And so, like I said, this past week, I've been really learning to trust God with a lot of situations in my business and life that are just completely out of my control. And instead of worrying about it, I just heard in my spirit, why not every time you start worrying or the thought comes, and instead of projecting the future, thinking the worst is going to happen, and going in turmoil, basically, and having like heart palpitations, like I'll have anxiety, panic attacks. I grew up with that and had debilitating fear. And I never really truly did that the right way. I always turned to drugs and alcohol in the past, but now that I'm not doing drugs and alcohol, like that fear has been the biggest hindrance in my life. And so I had to stop and recognize and pray accordingly. I had to stop and say, wait, this is the spirit of fear. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, I have not given you the spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. So the spirits he gives us is his own spirit, and God is love, and perfect love casts out all fear, all doubt, all worry, all anxiety, and this life and the life to come. So I'm not worried about anything in this life if I'm truly trusting in Him. But first, like I said, I had to recognize what spirit was working there. And I said, this is the spirit of fear. So what do I do now after recognizing it? I go to prayer and I use the word, the sword of the Spirit, in accordance to that spirit at work. And so I will use 2 Timothy 1:7 over and over again all this last week or more. And every single time those fears came up, I would repeat that over myself and I would pray. I said, Lord, I am giving this situation to you. Then another situation would come up. Then I would have the fear all over again. And I'm like, am I going to trust you or not? And I said, Lord, I am going to trust you. I'm not going to go back to drinking. I'm not going back to taking CBD gummies or whatever else I did in the past and freak out and worry about it. So in 1 John 4:13 says, God has given us His Spirit as proof that we live in Him and He in us. And like I said, God is love. His Spirit is the embodiment of love, and He puts that Spirit in us. And 18 says, such love has no fear because perfect love expels all fear. If we are afraid and fear the punishment or damnation to come, then this proves that we have never fully experienced His perfect love. That's the assurance of salvation, that he has made you more than conquerors in him who loved us. Romans 8:37 and 1 John 5:13. John ends his gospel with, "Dear children, I write to you these things so that you can know that you are saved." And so that takes care of the fearful expectation of the death to come and the life after this. And so that spirit of fear keeps you away from the full knowledge of Christ, not fully trusting in his perfect love. And it keeps you from trusting in him wholeheartedly and from speaking by his spirit, walking in his spirit, living in his will, obeying him 100%. It's not 50% of your effort, 50% of his. It's the finished work of the cross that we're trusting in what he has already accomplished on the cross. So the key to spiritual freedom of fear, worry, anxiety is fully trusting in the love of Christ and what he's already accomplished, and knowing that he has it. He's got your back. He is in full control, and he doesn't need your input, your intellect, and your effort. He just needs you to believe. He says in John 6, the only work is to believe in me. And it's trusting in that finishing work, letting God do the work. Let him take control. And 1 John 4:10, I'll end with this. This is real love, not that we love God, but that he first loved us and sent his son as a sacrifice to take away the sins of the world. And so it's all based on love and what he did for us and what he did for you. And what he wants you to do is trust him completely in this life. And so allow that love to go to work in your heart and let that transformative power give you a new heart, new desires, and set your mind on spiritual things, as in Paul talks about in Romans 8. He says, the man that has his mind set on the flesh cannot please God, and this ends in destruction and death. But the man that sets his eyes on Christ has life and peace. So there's two different outcomes. I choose life and peace. I hope you do today too. He loves you, and I love you. Have a good day.